G'day everyone and welcome to this week's edition of the Melbourne Punters Show. Darren Potter,
Juppy.
Racetrack Ralphie.
Hello, thank you very much. Hello, Juppy.
Good afternoon and welcome to another spectacular week of Victorian racing.
Yeah.
And unlike some other media outlets, we will actually be talking about Victorian racing.
Well, no, hang on. Niha. Are we still covering Victorian racing, or is it all about Hong Kong now?
Or Hong Kong or Adelaide or Brisbane or Kalgoorlie.
What are we meant to be interested in?
Yes,
apparently racing.com covering Hong Kong now means that all roads lead to Hong Kong.
Like, I've got no issue with them adding more content to the channel. It's good, but I'm telling you now, if they think they've got any hope of getting Crown Bet, not betting fixed odds on Hong Kong racing, good luck with that.
Well, what does that mean?
Well, as we know, the Hong Kong Jockey Club don't allow anyone to legally bet fixed odds on their product. People who do it just do it off their own bat, but that's why TAB, for argument's sake, don't offer fixed odds on the Hong Kong racing, because they're a registered partner that co-mingle the pools with them, so that's why they don't offer the fixed odds. So now that racing.com is coming on board, and one of their main partners, which is why it's actually posted a profit this year, racing.com, because of the sponsorship that's been...
Prize money's up significantly in Victorian racing, is it?
Well,
no.
We can look at that, Ralph, because we could probably cull about 8 meetings a week that we don't need, and that'd significantly lift prize money. But Crown Bet are now the wagering partner of racing.com, and of course they offer fixed odds, and I can't see them taking it off for this. So I'm sure there's some commercial arrangement in place, but I can't see them not doing it.
So I saw some banter that said that that this will mean people will now be interested in betting on Hong Kong through the tab. Because that's fantastic, because it's going to be in front of people. So via the pari-mutuel, when punters are betting on sport and on all the hundreds and hundreds of meetings we have every week at 116%, all of a sudden punters, because we're betting at Hong Kong, are going to migrate to suddenly bet at 120%, are they?
Well,
I'm missing something.
If most of the corporates will mitigate that by paying tote plus 5%.
Yes.
So it brings it back down. Like I do use the tote product over there.
What I'm saying isn't the sell that this will increase people betting on the Victorian tote, and then the money will flow into the industry.
That's their only...
The spreadsheet gurus.
That's the only revenue that they will gain out of it, apart from having that to sell the advertising to when it's on.
You know what the problem is with that argument, Ralph?
Yes.
Is Racing Victoria and Racing.com within themselves can't agree on that point.
Correct.
All right, because obviously one part of Racing Victoria, who might have tweeted about it yesterday, doesn't really agree with that, and another part does agree with that.
Yes.
So until they can actually agree themselves, I don't care. You know, like I just don't care. Like, but maybe whatever, you know.
And
another thing.
But you, as in Darren Potter on last week's show, you actually read the play with Paul Betar's report into Victorian racing, because you said too many meetings make it impossible from an integrity perspective to police racing properly.
Yep, yeah, no, I think that's an absolute fact. But I read his report, and I sort of I didn't read cover to cover. I read the conclusion. I read the executive summary.
I was going to say, when did you have time to? It's 200 pages long or something, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think it's that long. It's to me. I might be wrong. But it just feels like more bureaucracy, another shuffling of the cards. I doubt that they're going to employ the sort of people that would really. I mean, because it's so subtle, you have to be able to see through these things. If you're not...
Well, let me put this to you then.
If you've not been heavily involved in wagering, I don't care what your other career is, you're not going to be able to see through these things.
But let me put this to you, that Paul Betar is no deal. Knows many jurisdictions. He's been asked to by the racing minister to prepare this. Not RVL, but the racing minister. And the racing minister, I would think, would have had a gutful.
Yeah, the infighting.
For the infighting and everything else. So can I read this?
Just one thing before you do start reading that, Ralph. One thing on Paul Betar. Everyone's raving about him. He was in England when I was there. He was going to revolutionise the joint, turn that upside down, shake it all up. It's still the tip that it was when I got there. It's the same as what it is now. He came in with a whole lot of hot air and not a great deal changed. And at least he might have the minister on side this time that might want to throw the cat amongst the pigeons, but I think it's just another review that won't go terribly far.
No, but then the question is, did he resign because of the system? In other words, as I have for the racing industry, as many of us have in our life, we go, you know what, we can't do stuff.
It could have been a bit of that, but also he had a lot. He had 4 or 5 years there. He had a decent run at it to try and affect change. And if you're talking about prize money going up, well, there's one joint where prize money will never go up. I don't think.
Well, what are you reading?
I think this is the key part for punters, which is what we are, about wagering. To me, I reckon this is very significant. In discussions with a number of leading form analysts, it became evident there is a lack of confidence among this group in the assessment of on-track performances, particularly when it comes to the speed of races and the subsequent questioning of riders.
Yes.
Now, we've been going on about this for quite a while.
It's an absolute fact.
And I would say a great example would be Australian Cup Day, when Hugh Bowman went forward when they're walking on preferment to sit outside lead. He happened to win on protest, but that's not the point. The point was, if he didn't go forward, he would not have won.
No. Well, it's mathematically impossible.
And the big question that should be asked there is why didn't Damien Oliver go forward on the favourite?
No, that's absolutely right. So but Hugh Bowman got questioned for a winning move. Earlier in the day, he or she and the United States got truckloaded. Kenja goes 10 lengths faster than it has in its life, but no questions because normally it's leading. So that to me is an example of what frustrates us as format. Raising these discussions also was the RV prize money distribution model, which it is felt does little to enhance integrity in the contest, as it could be argued the model encourages participation over performance. The decision by RV, Racing Victoria, to reduce prize money for winning, and redistribute prize money down to 10th is consciously designed to encourage participation and support field sizes. As a result, the commercial needs of the sport are seeking to be met. However, the flip side is there is now increased incentive to simply participate, and how many jockeys do we see happy to get out the back and simply participate? In a wagering sport, this could be construed to be or create an integrity issue when combined with the sheer volume of races taking place, which must prove challenging for stewards and betting analysts to assess all riding and all horse performances. This prize money model of simply encouraging participation should be considered from an integrity perspective. It may be there is a solution that satisfies owners and the commercial reinvestment needs of the sport, but requires closer consideration from integrity perspective. Now, that's been tabled in Parliament, so that's a good start. I would argue.
It's definitely a good start, Ralphie. There's no doubt about that. But from a punter's point of view, the situation we want is any of the wrongdoers out there that will get up to mischief, whether they're trainers, stable hands, vets, whatever situation they're in, we would like them to be terrified of getting caught.
Yes.
And at the moment, they're not. Yes. They're not concerned about getting caught badly at all. They just don't care. So until we end up with a situation that has people that have access to horses terrified, to me, it's just the situation that we've had, the previous report, which was, how long ago was that one? 8 years ago or something?
Yeah.
And it sort of nothing.
Same but different.
Yeah, same but different, you know what I mean? So,
whole layout.
well, I mean, I suppose there's reasons for hope.
Yeah.
But, from a punter's point of view, you just want it to be a we're just restructuring the integrity department. So the principles there about these changes, I'm agreeing with you. Yes, it's a tick.
Yeah.
But just restructuring the integrity department does nothing unless you man it with the right kind of people. That's my point.
Spot on. Now, and one of the reasons they're not going to be terrified of doing the wrong thing is when the industry media arm puts out 10 stories, Preakness Stake previews, Moody to headline Caston Cup Day, Werther aiming for 3 Group 1s around Hong Kong, so far we've got Caston and America, Hong Kong. Blinkers go on Haraki's Group 1 bid, Brisbane. Goodwood debut for Injured Yendall, South Australia. Racing.com's weekend best. Stewards to hear Moody's tweet explanation, Sarah Moody. Dylan Dunn takes Group 1 chance in his stride. Pike's Rajingo warning, I assume that's a Western Australian story. Racing industry set for integrity taker. The reason I mention that, Potts, is that was the same day that 2 jockeys were charged for not allowing a horse to run its merits.
Yeah.
And the industry's own media arm didn't even mention it.
And considering there's not much else happening in Victoria at the minute,
that list of 10 stories, I think, would underline it.
We'll get to this uneventful meeting at Flemington in part 2. Like I couldn't get into
It was a great day. I won. Self-interest.
Well, I won for the weekend, but just can't get warm. So the highlight of the week for me was getting to go home from Pakenham at half time.
Now, we should light a candle for the night meeting. Whatever. You were out there, were you?
I think we should. Well, I think we should all worship the God, the King, who predicted this. Glenn Pollard. On the Sydney Punter Show, less than 3 weeks ago, he was talking about an NRL game where the lights went out and the players were having to get dressed by the light of their iPhone in the change rooms, and they played with half the lights out, and how the Immortals and the commentary team were going berserk about how disgusting it was and how this can never be allowed to happen again, and look, it's just really, really blowing up. But he said, if that happened in racing, we just go, oh well, play on the net. And he's Jumpy saying it's the highlight of his week. So the people do a lot of work, the bookmakers, the trainers, the jockeys, everything, the strappers, everything to get those horses out there on the night on Thursday night. A lot of work goes into it, get halfway and the lights go out.
Well, there was another thing.
And no one ever really cares.
Talk us through that.
It poured with rain the whole night. They've got 2...
How many people there?
There was actually a few, for some, I don't know for what reason, there was a few people. When I mean a few, I don't know, there might have been 100, 150 or something, like big for Thursday night. There was 2 things to come out of the night for me. Daniel Bowman trained the winner of the first, if I recall, and in his post-race interview he said, I'm bloody lucky to get here. Thank you to the stewards for bringing the saddle down to us as quickly as they could so we could saddle up and get it into the yard, because it turns out there might be traffic on the Monash Freeway at 4:30 in the afternoon. Who would have thought?
But that's another part of that. You said in his post-race interview, Jumpy. That horse, okay, this is serious. That horse was $6 into $3.
Yep.
Paid less than $3 across the
Yeah,
toast.
it was truckload.
Okay. And after the race, he talked about how well it had trialled at Geelong and Bendigo. I mean, I don't know how long we're going to have to put up with this.
Well, we put up with it until more people do what you did, and I do the same thing. And you sent out recently to your subscribers, don't bet in this race, there's no known horse here. And that's what we have to vote with our pockets.
So we've had that issue, so getting out there is just hell on wheels. And so you finally get out there, and then it pours with rain, and there's 2 generators on the course, and it's a wonderful facility out there. They've spent a lot of money, and the industry is very proud of it, but I'm not sure who dropped the ball on making sure that the generator couldn't be inundated with water.
The good news is,
Water.
Jumpy, is that in part 2 we'll have a special guest on, one of our long-term great subscribers, and his young daughter was a bit upset last week.
Yep.
She wanted a bit of attention from Dad. He was busy watching the racing on a Thursday night, rained out, and he got to play gym rummy with her, and she loved it. Discovered the joy of cards. So at the expense of a shitty Thursday night meeting at Pakenham, I'm glad that Rexy's kids got to find the joy of a good game of cards.
Well, we could do part 3 here with a list of things that I'd rather be doing on a Thursday night than being at racing.com park, and it'll go for 6 weeks.
Yes. So we were saying that it was the colonoscopy racing, it was just too crowded. Well, that's a nice way of making it uncrowded, just not put water in a generator and call off half the meeting.
Well, it did absolutely lash down. The weather was horrendous, and luckily, thankfully, we have got a facility where we are inside.
Don't drop his name.
Because if it had been some of the other joints that I go
It
to...
was horrendous in Pakenham on a Thursday night late in May.
Yes. And
the traffic was busy on the Monash.
Why we're still going at this stage of the season, no one knows. We understand you're trying to claw back market share from the greyhounds. We're not the dogs.
No, we're not. Who said we are?
The industry have said that they are.
Yeah, it's not through churn. That's what it's not through.
Well, the pie's not growing. All we're doing is just dividing it up finer and finer and finer. So, yeah, it was crap. I had way more fun going to Geelong on Friday.
Now, last week was a week full of hollow races because it was just following on from Warrnambool. We just had and then you'd have one improver bob up in every race, so it'd be a problem. But the races were just hollow, and so anything you wanted back was odds on. So many horses last week were in odds on.
Now, at the risk of turning the show into Better Homes and Gardens, we're talking about grass again for the 2nd week in a row.
Yeah.
But so Mick Kent, did I hear this right? I'm on the way to junior footy. Get a tweet from someone saying it's blowing up again. I didn't know, but Mick Kent, is that right? That he said that had Speedo not ran at Flemington 2 weeks early on the very firm track, he would have won the Goodwood. I have great respect for Mick Kent, but it smacks of sour grapes, and I just noticed that the Benko texted out on his ratings. I don't know if you've looked at it, I haven't looked, I just looked at them all the times. only Black Caviars run a better time in the Goodwood. It was a sensational Group 1 race, and 3 Group 1 horses ran at their best, didn't they?
Well, I had a very interesting big candidate fact last Sunday at Pakenham where I saw him there without glasses.
Well, that could happen, yeah.
Oh no, that's very rare for me.
That is, yeah.
So that was, in fact, that was probably the highlight of the week.
But I just want to say this because then I got into some banter with Nick Williams on Twitter, as did Daniel O'Sullivan, as did Adam Blenko.
To be fair, 3 guys that have a rough idea of what they're doing.
Well, but what it really exposed, because Nick's first come back, because at first I said about Faulkner used to love firm tracks as a young horse.
Yes.
And he said, but go check your facts. So I better go check my facts. So I did. And when he won on Derby Day, the track was rock hard, and that's fact. So I said that back to him. He said, well, you would think you, who has worked hands-on with horses, would know that. Now the reason Nick would say that was because I strapped horses for your dad when I was a kid. So I said, he goes, I said, but back then I wasn't doing like we do, 40, 50, 60 hours a week looking at data. And when I look at data and I see horses raced on firm tracks, I see them run 2 weeks later and win. So I'm thinking, well, how cruel is it? And then he said, oh, well, you know, so I don't want to take him out of context, but then the initial reaction usually from all racing participants is, that's what he said to me, well, you should come down on a Sunday morning to see how they are for racing. I don't think you, me, any punter says it with lack of respect to participants, and I don't think we ever say it without taking what they say on face value. But what we do say is, after a day or 2 or 3, and they free up, these horses repeatedly race on. In Faulkner's case, it might have been confirmation bias. In other words, he was old, he's getting 8 years old, he was struggling with he's a war horse.
Yeah.
And Caulfield Guineas, they saw him out.
Yeah.
But on that same day, the Melbourne Cup went around, the Caulfield Cup went around, the Cox Plate went around, all these Group 1 winners. So it can't have been cruel for everyone.
The other thing that gets me with the participants on this issue, these were similar participants that were lobbying for when the tracks got rebuilt. Caulfield was only a couple of years ago. It must be 7 or 8 years ago since they redid Flemington now. To have these tracks so that we didn't lose meetings in the winter. Well, the thing is, they drain so well now that if you don't have rain 2 days before the meeting, they're going to drain and they're going to be firmish. Like, what do you want?
Well, and so, but by extension, when they say, oh well, that you guys don't care about the animal. Actually, if we're investing on an animal, we actually really care. Because if they go and miss in the run, and I'll talk about if you want to make us sound as callous as you want, go for it. But if they go and miss in the run, we lose our money.
I just think
so why would we not want all the animals?
They're arguing the wrong case.
Yeah.
Essentially, they're arguing for more irrigation.
Yes.
Okay. The problem is, as Jumpy just pointed out, the tracks are designed now to drain incredibly well. The alternative is Randwick, which doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I've seen what happens to form at Randwick, in lanes, and the whole thing's like it's just a mismatch of chaos. So what they've got to argue for is tracks that are built to retain more water. If they want to argue for that, fine, I don't care. They can argue for it. But this idea that Mick Goody should have put another 20 mils of water on that track 2 weeks ago is just complete nonsense. It creates so many more problems than it solves.
Well, I just want to add one thing, because we touched on it, and I reckon it's been proven. Sorry.
Yeah.
With Sir Peter.
Yeah.
Now, apart from the fact the times say Sir Peter ran enormous,
Yep.
he was beaten by 2 other horses that ran enormous.
Yeah.
Blackheart Barton under the Louvre.
Louvre, yeah.
They all ran great, and they spread the field right out. They ran a fast time. How can you not trust the flow?
And the market didn't miss Blackheart, but they truckloaded.
Correct. So I could argue that I think Sir Peter ran to its best, and if Mick thinks that he pulled up a bit sore, the wind actually, and this is one thing Nick conceded, I said, well, on that day, the track was fine, the surface was fine, but the tailwind was making him run 3 or 4 inches quicker than they ever have before. And Nick Williams, who was arguing the point on behalf of, if you like, Mick Kent and the Leaf Friends, all great racing people that I do have respect for. But he said, well, extreme weather conditions no one can do anything about. So in other words, Mick Goody's getting criticised for a track that was perfect and the tailwind
windy,
that it had no one. And by the way, how did the Bandit go in the 3200 off the 2000 soft 2000 run that day?
Yeah, say no more.
Well,
say no more. There he is, the Bandit. You know what
the
I mean?
one that we blew up about getting scratched from an upgrade, and the statement.
There's no trainer more, sensitive to these firm track he's using, John Sadler, and there he is. He runs his horse on Saturday off the run on the firm track, and it runs, the race of its life. So.
We're solutions orientated here, so we're going to now. I know how to solve all this.
Yes.
So the 20-year master plan's come out, where it's a bit of a think walk. They've thrown all the ideas in there, and they're tossing them around.
Was that the one that coincidentally came out the same day as Paul Betar's?
Yep. So it looks like we're going to get even though they're going to build a whole heap of flats in the new track at Moonee Valley, we're going to get rid of it.
Yep.
And we're going to get rid of Sandown as well. Sandown, I can understand, is a huge parcel of land out there. They'll build a million houses like what they've done at the old Waverley Park. And I assume Moonee Valley's in the same boat. Well, you know what? Here's what we can do at both Flemington and at Caulfield, because they're going to try and want to get the trainers out of both joints eventually and send them to the bush. Let's put some sort of natural track on the inside that doesn't drain.
That's right.
Morfordville Park's track, if you will.
Yeah.
And then they can decide which track they want to run on that week.
So they can call it, like at Randwick and Kenzo, they can call it Flemington and Shithouse, and Caulfield and Shithouse. And then if the trainers who want tracks with give, they can say this week we're running it on the Caulfield Shithouse because we don't want to run on the
No. The Shithouse at Flemington isn't out the front, it's out the back where the betting ring is, where I spent all day on Saturday rolling around.
That's right.
So,
the problem is, Juppy, I know what you're saying, but it's just not going to happen. I mean, these clubs are never going to stop arguing with each other. They're never going to stop arguing with Racing Victoria. It's just going to be a continuous argument, infighting. And the problem is, they're arguing over money, over who gets what bit of money.
Yeah.
Okay, that is predominantly provided to them by punters, and the one thing they don't seem to care about at all is punters.
No, well,
incidentally,
that's what I've been saying to every
it drives me
official.
insane. I mean, this is part one of our show. I mean, I'm bored, so I hope the viewers aren't as bored as I am.
Well, I want to market.
Sorry,
let's bring it back.
Just
bring it back to
insane.
some odds. Give me a market that by the time these clubs get their act together, they close one of the Sandown or Moonee Valley and build all these apartments, that the property crash will have arrived and they'll all do their arse anyway.
Yeah, probably.
So it's already.
We got some follow-up during the week, gentlemen, on my rant last week. What about the punters with the situation with the top fluck of that horse in Morphettville at $1.90?
Oh, now we'll repeat it if people haven't seen it.
So what happened was there was $1.30 favourite. The horse was back in the 5 minutes leading up to the race from $1.45 into $1.30. A Julie won. The best price I could find anywhere that was ever bet by the corporates was $1.75, but the top fluck was $1.90. So the top fluck was $1.90, the SP was $1.30. $1.90 was a mythical price. I incorrectly said that there were 4 bookmakers there. I was incorrect. Johnny Skelton, friend of the program, Eagle Punt on Twitter. Make sure you follow him. Good man, good South Australian judge. He got in touch and said that it wasn't actually the old Adelaide Cup meeting. He said that was a hastily arranged meeting from the Balaclava meeting that was abandoned after the farcical distance changed on the Wednesday, and Port Augusta was abandoned as well. So they held a meeting there at Morpheville, and because it was late notice, only one bookie turned up.
So it was one bookie.
So the flux were taken off one board, off a bloke that probably didn't ride a bet in the race. So again, that was actually one for the punters, but that was the situation. So thank you, John, for getting in touch with us and bring us up to speed on that issue.
There we go. Is that end of part one?
That's the end of part one.
Let's come back with a more exciting part two.
No, it won't be. It won't be because it's Flemington.